Hello, everyone. So let's get started. I mean, it's 11:02, and we'll keep it like pretty much 60 minutes or an hour long event. I'm excited. I'm happy because I appreciate the effort from Safura. She did it on behalf of IEEE Women in Engineering from Lahore and, collaborating with me on this, putting this webinar, reaching out to me. And then, yeah, it turns out to be that say today we are here. And I'm going to talk about path to cloud security. We'll go into presentation mode, and that's that every 15 minutes or something. I'll give it a pause to give you a chance to ask me any question in the comment. So we'll keep that doing it. Take your questions. And yeah, I mean, just wanted to have it a very interactive session. So today's topic, let me change it to more. So path to cloud security. So this is the topic today. So we'll look into today what is cybersecurity and why. And we're going to talk about the market, best threats in the market. And we'll see types of the threats for you to understand and the job market, because that's the most important piece, in my opinion, for you to understand the job market and then the skill sets and all that stuff, what you need to be get ready for the market. A little bit about myself. I did masters a year and a half ago. I've had pretty much tons of experience. I've been doing cloud computing and security for the last many years. You know, I'm doing a lot of experience work with the large financials and multinationals companies. So that's, I think, also try to add how make this valuable content for you. So why consider a career in cybersecurity? As I told you before, right? So there is a lot of stuff around cloud itself and then cybersecurity. And answer is simple because it's growing. It's growing exponentially. And the important thing is that companies are going towards cloud. Made the decision to transition to the cloud in the next 5 years. Now they have to do it today because of the situation, because they want their workforce to work. And the only way to work is work from home. So that's one of those things, right? So there is no choice. So for that, you need to have your people to work from anywhere, any place, from any device, right? So it's totally a unmanaged environment, and it's so fast. You need to bring the people to work or back to work. So that's how the business work, right? But again, there are so many areas, there are gaps and which cannot be corrected. There could be backdoor, there could be security things and all that. So that's all of a sudden is growing. And that's why there's a need for the skills in cybersecurity as well. I think I do have some question. Let me see if, all right. So we will come back to this after 10 minutes. As I said, so I'll be answering certification related questions as well. So market research, right? So the idea is that what I'm going to tell you throughout this, maybe an hour, it's not me. I'm just sharing with you the facts and figures from the market, from the research. It's a Gartner research, and they're talking about investment by companies in 2018 and 19, and now 2020, and is even gone up. I have not looked it up, the recent reports, but because of COVID and everything, things have gone up, things have changed. So this is the prediction was based on pre-COVID. Before that, like steady growth, they wanted to do it, but things have changed. It must have gone up. If you look at, do your research, you'll find the numbers would have been changed, must have gone up. So one side we hear people are losing their job, and technology area, tech sector is changing. There's a demand of the skill, the people with the right skill sets. So if you look at, there are different areas, even within those areas, if you look at IaaS and PaaS, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, right? The different delivery model in the cloud, different type of cloud services, basically. And then you would need different skill set in infrastructure as a service, maybe a different skill set in platform as a service, and different skill set in software as a service, all different type of cloud. But again, you need different skill sets. Changes, it does not change a lot. But again, that's why each and every area where the growth in the job market. So that's being said, this is the data from the market, and I'll be sharing more. And you will be surprised if you have not been looking into it. Now, since the topic is about cybersecurity, so we need to understand where these jobs coming in from, right? So I pulled the report last day, July 22nd, 2 days ago, It's published in one of the famous SC magazine. Yeah, I pull it from there, this image. And then we need to understand why there's a demand. So cybersecurity has been there. And then we have information security, cloud security. I'm going to talk about why they are different a little bit. Where would you be starting? We'll see more as we go on. But we need to understand where this job's coming from, right? It's not just they put it out there because people are being laid off. So where this is coming from, right? So we have to justify and we have to understand. So that's what we'll see. So before I do that, I wanted to bring it up. Those who are in security, there is a lot of logs, a lot of data, or you can call it in a simple word, is a big data, right? So that comes a lot. And that's IOC is something what we call intent of compromise. So if you have tons of logs get flooded, and with that flooded data, how do you make sure the data you're getting it is reasonable or is something meaningful? So it has to go through the process of machine learning and AI and all that stuff, right? Same thing when you go to the gas station to get the gas in your car filled up, that gas is pure. But if you go to the rig station or oil rigs, the gas, the petrol, the gas is not like that format, right? It had to go through the whole refining process. So in security, those are skill sets and tools and technology you need to learn. Otherwise, you would not be doing good in your, area of job, right? So that's how you plan and learn those skills. So just wanted to bring it up and you wanted to give some humor to that. Here's one more that has gone up. The reason I bring it up is okay, before I explain, you can somebody in the chat type it and help me understand what I'm trying to explain here. Or what do you get in your brain? Okay, what's there? What does this picture explains to you? Anyone? As I say, there's no right and wrong. Just type it and let me know. What do you get out of this picture? Yeah, as I said, no right, wrong. Just put your comments. No, no one. So no one is okay. We'll move on. So this is a type of attack which is called email phishing. So somebody is doing email phishing, not the fish phishing, the email phishing, where they do and steal your credential, steal your username and password. And why it is important, we'll understand. So I'm not going to go to a workshop here just to give an idea, but again, help you get there to become educated. And of course, I can go more and more technical. Is you have to type in the chat. Again, on a high level, I wanted to give an overview of all these areas. So basically, this is something email phishing, and then I will share with you why there's increase and why it needs to be protected. There will be some tips for you as well. And that's how all these things work together when it's come to a career in cybersecurity, information security, or cloud security. And there's a little bit different. We'll talk about it. So we are exactly 11:15. So I'll take a question. There's a question from someone, and then we'll move on. And then another 10, 15 minutes later, if there are any questions, I'll be answering those. So, okay. I think that the message is not there anymore. Okay, but that's fine. We move on. So anyone, any questions, please type, feel free to type in. I wanted to have an interactive active session and I want your participation. So before I move on to the next slide, have you been ever compromised? Have your account ever been compromised? Is something you wanted to share? You might have been victim or your password or something may have been lost. Is it something you want to type in the channel? Let me know. When did it happen? And when was the last time or something around that? Have you have any experience? All right. So if you're all saying and keep quiet, either you know everything or you all agree with me that you didn't have any account compromise, which is surprising, right? I did have, and that's how I learned it, but that's fine. We can move forward. So now we need to understand what kind of these threats are, right? And and when we explore these threats, they're all going to be connected. And when you will see that as we keep moving, you'll understand the cloud security and cybersecurity and all that stuff. So if you look at these type of attack making up to 20% of cyber attack, crypto miners, then we have email attack vector. I think that email attack vector, which is 78%, it goes back to the email phishing actor. I think so. We'll look into that. I'll explain. So email phishing is about somebody send you an email, hey, there is a sale going on, you can save up to 80%, and you just click on it and type your username and password, and your password is gone. Or they send you an email, hey, this is an email from your company and we have this new policy and we want you to sign in and make changes. So that email, and when you click on that link, that web page would just exactly looks like your company's email page or your corporate website page, maybe a page exactly like Gmail if your company has an email account there, or Microsoft 365. It will just going to look like exactly the same. So that's a social engineering kind of thing. So when you click on there, put your username and password, exactly at that time, that's a credential leak. And then you lose your credential and the attacker can easily get control of your account. And then we have no control. I mean, there, but of course, in technology, there are control, and this is where the career is, where the job is. And I'll explaining you what kind of track you can take to help you in your career when you're focusing in this area. So that's one of the type of the attack I wanted to talk. And then there are different types of attacks, different files, and some 80% of the observed attacks use vulnerabilities. And like vulnerabilities, I wanted to explain is that going back to your operating system, for example, right? You have an iPhone, you have an Android phone, right? You get those update on your phone every 2 or 3 months. You have to forcefully update your phones, right? Think of the same thing happens in computers. So your computer also need updates. So if you do not do that, they become vulnerable, and the vulnerabilities then can be exploited. So that's how these things work, and this is where you have to follow those. So if the people did not follow that in 2017, and they are saying 80% of the attacks were because lazy admin did not put those. So basically, that's what's no. So we move on to the next. And we'll see more what kind of cyber threats are there. Public storage. So who does not use OneDrive or Box or Google Drive? Anyone? Or who uses online storage? Can you type yes or no in the comment? I'm talking about cloud storage. Anything, your Google Drive, your Microsoft OneDrive, your anyone? Do you use online storage, Google Drive, OneDrive, Box, file sharing? Okay. So let me explain you why and why this is a problem. Because even if your personal file you put it may not have some sensitive information, if it does, then you have to be careful because people leave those public storage and shared with anyone, right? So when you shared the storage with anyone with anonymous access to anyone, right? Then it's publicly available. It's not unlike your storage at home behind your router and firewall. Nobody has access to it because by default they are disabled. But when you go to the cloud, and if you are not putting the control and if you enable sharing, and if you enable sharing with everyone, that's a problem. But now we are even talking about in commercial use when the company uses that, not even personal, because somebody's personal story, somebody when attacking may not make money. So there is a motivation why somebody wanna attack or hack or steal data from public storage because of money, because of financials, right? They want to make money out of that. That's why they put time and effort and energy. So there was Amazon S3 bucket. It's a type of the storage that was compromised, I believe, 4 or 5 months ago. 140 plus millions of US citizens' data got stolen. Because of why? That was left publicly accessible and unencrypted. And they took it. So there was no rocket science control you needed. You just need to encrypt it with right controls and it could have been saved. But there's a news, if you go and look it up 4 or 5 months ago, that's happened. So this is not the one story. Like if every week, I'd say every day there is some breach, but every week there is a bigger breach where millions of data get stolen. So that's why public storage is a problem, but it doesn't mean you don't want to use it. That means you have to have the people with the right skill set, with the right technologies, with the right controls to implement, and people use it. So many companies use it because they have the right people on their team with the right skill sets. And that's where the demand of those skill set with those technology tools is increasing. And that's why we're talking about, okay, career in cloud security. I hope this kind of makes sense. If not, then keep letting me know. So yes. So at 11:30 in 7 minutes, keep coming question. I'm looking at your questions and they're very interesting questions. I'm gonna answer all those questions, how to protect, prevent, and all that in next 6 or 7 minutes. I want to talking at 6, 7 minutes, and after that, I'll take a pause and I'll answer all the question in the last 10, 15 minutes, and then the pace, and then I'll be speaking for another 10, 15 minutes, and then take the questions. Right. So we move forward with that. So same thing, and then these attacks does not even stop here because those devices, now think of the environment you have today versus 10 years ago. I don't know how long have you been using it depending on your age and your experience. I've been using it for so many years. I've seen the desktop age, and now I'm looking at the same age as the mobile age, like mobile devices. So now there are not millions, there are billions of devices. So for example, yeah, I need my tea basically. So there are billions of devices or even more. And that's why you keep hearing about AI, machine learning, IoT, right? And so many things because the watch I'm wearing is IoT. The cell phone is sort of an IoT. And we're using Google Maps and all that for the last so many years. So signals and everything in the cloud. But today I do pretty much everything on my cell phone. And not for just making calls and messages, everything, right? My social media is there, my email is there, my online storage we are talking about is on my cell phone, my personal storage, my corporate account, the place I work, everything is there. So what if that device gets compromised, right? What if that? That's no good. So you need to make sure devices are also encrypted. Your laptop, your desktop, it also needs to be encrypted. How to encrypt that? What are the tools? What are the controls? And when you encrypt them, there is more details around that. How do you secure that? And from this device, I'm storing my data in the cloud. That tunnel, that route, that Wi-Fi connection over the cloud, that also needs to be encrypted to secure the data. So there's clear text and encrypted. And then when you host it in the cloud, that storage itself has to be encrypted. So that's the whole thing. So you don't have to think much because tools available, technologies are available, companies are investing, but not so many people available. And we'll see. And I'll share some facts in a few minutes. The growth in the skill set and the demand for the job market, right? For the security, cloud security or information security or even cyber security, what's the job market, how the job is increasing and what kind of skill set or tools or skill set they're looking for. Give me a second, guys. So that's being said, we'll go to our next slide. And then we are talking about the growth in the market. And I was driving here in New Jersey. Other day, I saw there are like 500,000 jobs, 500,000 jobs only in cybersecurity in US in the next 3 to 4 years. I saw somewhere on the billboard. So market is growing regardless. And you can Google and you can search it, just to make sure the numbers, what I'm saying, are correct, or maybe there's a little bit difference, but you can see and also show you the Department of Labor. But you can also check for your country as well if they do have this kind of data available for you. So basically that's how you need to planning because in your career, because you know that there is demand for the jobs and that's why you should be doing it. If there is no demand, then of course you need to rethink and may need to a little bit diverge. So again, here future is promise, demand is an increase, people are required. So I'll take a pause and I'll take a couple of questions and then we can move on. Okay. So keep coming back with your questions. So I have, how can you deploy cloud computing with different models? So we are not doing a cloud computing, so I'm going to skip it, but there are public, private, and all different models available. So that's a different discussion for Irfan. So our next is, yes, I didn't know what does it mean. And then we go with Ihab. Actually, I use a lot of them. What about sharing only specific folder? Can they access the rest of the parent folder? Okay, so yeah, I mean, you can have an option, for example, in Microsoft OneDrive, when the people in your organization, you can allow a specific access to specific people that they can only read only, or some people in your team, you can say, hey, they can write only. It means they can also upload the file. So some people you can only give them read access. Some of them you can give them edit access, and rest of them you just don't even give them any access. Same thing if you go to the Google Drive, you can share with some of your friends some documents, or with the Gmail accounts, and give them read access or read only and read and write. So it's all controllable there. So basically when you're in the job and you work, depending if they are using Microsoft 365, then you need to learn how these things run in Microsoft OneDrive and make sure you do that. I hope that answers your questions. If not, then you can still ask more questions. Aside of saying, what are the precautions that a user must consider before going for cloud computing? It's very big questions. This question has a lot of width in that, because that a user must consider before going for cloud computing. So basically, I would not say for a user, because when you talk about career in security, when you're going to work for a company which is using cloud computing, so let's talk about with that respect, right? That a company should be doing it to make sure the user's data, basically that's a company's data, is protected, right? So then company has to have some educational and training to the user. Hey, this is how you're supposed to be using on your computer. This is how you're supposed to be using on your devices, that kind of thing. And that's how you can do it, and make sure train your users so they should not be just sharing your company's confidential data with anyone, or leaving open for anyone. So they need to provide, and a user need to follow those practices. But even if your personal data, then of course you make sure by default it should not be accessible, and you should not be allowing access to everyone. You have to give them access to a particular person typing their email address. So when you add a file in your cloud storage, so make sure you go one by one. For example, the best practice, so you know whom you're sharing with your document, if it's your personal stuff. And if it's the company's environment, then of course you need to follow those policies. But again, you should be sharing with those people who work with you, or you know them. And you can always come back, and then you can disable the access, let's say after a week. And there are some type of control where you can set, hey, this link is available for a 1 week. And after 1 week, this link will expire. So that file, if you share with there's somebody as a marketing collateral or something, which can be shared with the public, but you want to make sure that's only available for 15 days and that should be expired automatically. So that kind of thing, you can do it. Okay. I have one more question. Happy to take. So I don't know that where's message has gone. I don't know. But if the message keeps coming, I will be taking more questions. Let's move on and we'll see if more messages or questions comes in. So as I said before, keep bringing your questions and I will be more than happy to answer. Okay. Okay, this is the last question and then we move on to the next one. What do I need to do to ensure that my existing security policy recommendations recommends the cloud model shift accommodates? Okay. Yeah. So there are okay, so this is okay. So I published one article at Microsoft TechNet 3 or 4 weeks ago. I can post the link later. You can go and follow those 7 best practices there. And there are industry standard best practices available that what controls you. So basically what you do, you look at those best practices and compare what you have today. Right? So you have the best practices available. For example, data should be encrypted at rest. Data should be encrypted in transit in the cloud, which most of the cloud provider offers that. So you make sure if you're in cloud, but if you're on premise in a data center, you may not have in data encryption at rest. So that would be a good reason for you to move to the cloud. Encryption is mean when you have a OneDrive app on your phone and you copy that file from your computer to the OneDrive, that transition encryption in transit that also be there. But on-prem, you may not have that. In case of file transfer protocol, FTP, it's all clear text. So that's not there. So that could be another good reason for you to move to the cloud. What else? Then you can enable identity and access protection, multi-level authentication, which is MFA. You can use authenticator app. That's the third practice. If your company is not doing business, the country you live in, you don't want people to log into your storage, for example, then you can control by country. So there are many practices, baseline criteria available, and there is a criteria available. If in a cloud model, you can say, hey, if a computer meets this requirement, allow that computer to access. There are different controls available on the network layer, also on the application layer. I hope that answers your questions. Utility computing. So I'm going to move on. But after Sarah, I answer your question, Hamoud, I'll come back. But can you in the chat explain more about utility computing? Give me more example or elaborate more. If you're talking about manufacturing or IoT or something else, I will go from there. So let's move on to this slide and keep bringing your questions. So how many professionals need 6 million in 2019? So I was not wrong when I said there are more than 5 million jobs available only in US in the next 3 to 5 years. And even US people do not have this many skills and there's shortage of skill. So of course the jobs are going to be available anywhere, any part of the world because people are now working from home. Things are changing. Infrastructure has changed. You don't need to set up a whole infrastructure. And the proof of that is you and I are communicating on collaborating on YouTube. I don't have to set up a whole Cisco devices and networking and expensive cameras at my home. I don't need the high speed bandwidth. Everything is available as a utility to me. What I need is just a laptop and that's it. And what you need to watch me there at your end is a desktop or a cell phone. That's what we need. I've seen those environments. I have worked on that environment where with networking people, we used to do it like Cisco devices. We have to get the MPLS high speed backbone to make video conferencing. The video conferencing was really a big project back in days. Today with Zoom, with this YouTube and with Microsoft Team, WebEx, you name it, it's a piece of a cake. You don't have to do anything. Just go online, buy the subscription and voila, there you go. You have it. See how it has changed. It has changed exponentially because of these mobile devices back in 2008 or 7 when iPhone came up. That time they were launched and app industry didn't even exist. So within a matter of like what, phone mobile industry picked up, cloud industry then picked up. In the last 3, 4 years, if you look at it, more and more people are collaborating online on video, especially these days. So that's why the more people are on devices, the more people are getting online. People are not educated enough when it comes to security. So businesses doing what they are supposed to be doing in retail, manufacturing, and all that, but they don't know about security of this stuff. People don't know about cloud computing, and this is where the skill set required for the professionals to have those skill set to secure and protect their data, protect their business. So business can focus on the business and professional focus on making sure the business is up and running by with their expertise. And that's how all these things work. And that's why there's the demand of these millions of jobs. So Ed, after 5 minutes, I'll answer all these questions. So keep coming. I can watch all these questions. So I wanted to give you here a little bit about the salary range. This is an average salary range in US, right? If you go, I believe I got it from maybe Indeed. I don't know. Some articles, I forgot to put it here, but somebody put it, you go and type. So this is an average salary range. It's if you're in the US. Every country is different. So you have to look it up locally, what it looks like in your country. But here you can get an idea. They're pretty much more or less the same, right? Software developer versus a security analyst, systems engineer, network architect. There's not much difference, right? Because they're pretty much coming up with the more junior or mid level. Okay, we're not talking about the expert level. We're not talking about something very experienced. Maybe somewhere within the range of 3 to 5 years of experience, you can end up doing more or less this range. Okay. So we'll not go more details into that. But again, next what we're going to be discussing about what are the options, how can you start your career, what kind of skill set you need, right? So we'll look into that. But again, you can come from every direction. If you're a systems engineer, you can be in security. If you're coming from network, you can be in security. You're a sysadmin for Linux, Windows, you name it. You can be in cybersecurity. And if you already have decided to start your career right there in security itself, but you need to know the network and operating system and all that, we'll look into that. I'll be going and talking about what kind of jobs there, which I pulled from Indeed, what they're looking for, the skill sets, and I'll share. Okay. And then maybe help you answer those questions on the a job or profile and around those. I hope you get what I mean. So before I do that, let's jump and get some cookies. You know cookies, right? Don't you? Yes. Who doesn't like cookies? Well, I'm not talking about American cookies or neither about British biscuits. These are the cookies in your browser, right? So I just came up, people check cookies, and cookies are a lot of good data about yourself. So basically in the browser history, all these web platform, online shopping, they get to know about the user, their experience, their behavior, and everything from the cookies, right? So when you go to a website, they are okay. Do you accept the cookies or not? If you accept it, then your browser is being tracked. If you deny it, you won't be tracked, and maybe some of the functionality will work or not. I'm not sure, but that's you will start noticing. What I've started noticing very frequently, especially these days, especially after against GDPR law for data privacy, basically. And there's one more coming up very soon for the California privacy law. But those are the cookies I'm talking about, the browser cookies, not the cookies what we eat. Okay, so let me take some more questions and we move forward. Okay, and we'll move forward to the next topic. What are your options? How will you be starting? Okay, so we'll do that. Let me run this. Okay, so what security aspect do you receive along with cloud? Along with cloud, this is from Hamoud. Okay, and from Sarah, are the cloud provider using any security standard best practices? Okay, so let me go back to Hamoud. What security aspect do you receive along with cloud? Security aspect do you receive? I didn't get your question, but let me try. But again, type it. Let me explain. And if that give you the answer you're looking for, if not, then just type it here. What security aspect do you receive? Well, it kind of aligned with Sarah's question. What are the best practices? So basically, so here are different job roles, what you end up doing, depending if you're starting a career, new role, you may not be dealing with those. But again, if you're middle in a career or a senior level, depending your job role, right? So that absolutely makes sense. What kind of best practices available, and how would you design a security system, right? And what are there? So basically, there are what we follow most of the time is if you go to NIST, NIST in US, it's from the federal department. You follow those guidelines. Also, if you go with cloud provider, you go to Microsoft, AWS, and Google. They have published all the guidelines there about their cloud. So the way you want to look at it, a security requirement are different for a federal government project versus a financial, versus or financial means I mean a bank. So federal is different, bank is different, cable industry is different, right? So manufacturing is different. So different verticals, it has different requirement. But one thing you have to be very sure, very careful about whenever you are dealing with the customer data, like credit card payments online, okay, PCI compliant, you have to be with that. So those are the things you have to be careful when you're dealing with credit cards are different. But if you work for a law firm and you have a lot of customers' data, and if you're a law firm, right? So law firm want to make sure the data is secured. So there are different guidelines and practices available. But now your question would, hey, I'm just looking for some baseline regardless. I don't care which industry it is. This is a baseline, right? So as I said before, I'll share the article, but in that article, what I have talked about is, okay, you have to have your data secure in the cloud, which is encryption addressed, which pretty much all providers does. A known provider, don't go to any one or free one or whatever. And then encryption in transit, which is when you're transferring your data. So file transfer is FTP, but if you do the app transfer from your cell phone, so for example, OneDrive is all encrypted. So those are the two ones. And again, the best practices and the security aspect are same. Identity and access management is very important. I did a couple of talks in the last 4 or 8 weeks around that area. And how do you make sure identity access protection? And that's where the cloud security is growing. That's different as compared to your typical cybersecurity. So why? Because we all use cloud today. In every organization you go, you will get a username and password, which is basically your email account you log in. So if you're using a Microsoft 365, you log in with your account name and password. And you must want to implement multi-factor authentication. Without this, you don't want to do cloud. Okay. And there is a separate talk. I put it there, or maybe on my YouTube channel, you can go and check. I think there are some security best practices and all that. You can always look it off later. Don't do it now. I will explain. So that's why your identity becomes very important, because identity is in the cloud. You're not logging to your traditional data center or on-premise environment. When you go into the cloud, imagine you're a startup and you have 15 people in your startup, or your startup, you have 50 people. You're not going to invest in hardware and everything on-prem and data center. You need a cost for real estate and everything. What you're going to say, you save this cost, and then you put this cost in the cloud. You buy a subscription, and voila, there you go. You have not to need to worry about backup and restore and everything. You start up, you set up in the cloud, in Azure or AWS, whichever, and that's it. But when you set up your cloud, you need to make sure the identities are secure, because if you're the root administrator or the global administrator, you don't want that account to be hacked. If your user are developers, they're developing their stuff, you don't want their code to be stolen. So you have to implement those controls. And one of the basic control is MFA, multi-factor authentication. And then you can also granularize that control based on conditional access, based on travel policy, based on the location, and goes on, right? There's so many layers. That's why cloud security is different than typical cybersecurity. Okay. So it doesn't mean you need to know both, but there's, if you go for pen testing, vulnerability scanning, patching abilities, that's there. But when it comes to cloud, you also need to think on the identity side of it. I hope that answers your question. So move on to the next one. What are your options, right? So if you have any questions, keep coming. And in next 10 minutes, I'll take more questions. What I'm going to do is share my YouTube channel here. Okay, so give me a second, guys. Right. And again, this is the event I'm doing also in collaboration with IEEE Women in Engineering, Lahore, and Safura helped me and collaborated with me on this. So I appreciate the help and thank you as well. And if you're watching the session, if you're interested in this topic, do subscribe my channel. There are a ton of videos I have put it already on security, around identity. They're very detailed. 40 minutes video are very detailed. And there are also interviews from industry expert on my channel. Just wanted to share. You'll find a lot of valuable information on this channel. Okay, so let's move on. What are your options, guys? Right? So how you want to get started, right? So if you're a university in fresh grad or maybe in a couple of years in the market, right? So what are the things what you need to be knowing, right? So information and security analyst, this would be, I believe, in my opinion, which would be your first job, but you need to have some years of experience. I'm not going to read it. You can read it yourself. But again, in the last line, it says, okay, security measure that protect computer network and information, planning and implementing to upgrading and monitoring. So I pulled it, I believe, from Indeed.com, I guess, mid or entry level job. But there are some mid level job also in information and security because it goes with your experience. So what you're going to do? So basically, for this, you need to have a very good understanding of operating system, a network, because how you're going to protect the computer network if you don't know about the basics of computer and operating system, if you don't know the TCP port in UDP, SMTP, POP, IMAP, port 80, 443, these are the ports and protocol you need to have understanding. You need to understand if it's a network, if a computer is a Windows or non-Windows, if it's a firewall, then you need to have a basic concept around firewall. You need to have understanding of IP addressing, right? And you need to be knowing about some tools on internet for blacklisted IP addresses, those kind of stuff and information you need to be knowing it. And that's kind of job role you end up because that's most of the part of your daily jobs because you're investigating it. You're analyzing the traffic. Of course, on tools, you will not be given some raw files and logs, but in the tool for monitoring or whatever, then you'll go and dig into that and you will be seeing, okay, in this scenario, why a user is kept failing with the login accounts. And if the user has attempted to log on to somebody's account in 1 minute and the attempt threshold is 1,000. So that is humanly not possible. You cannot apply times or maybe 500 times the username and password, right? In a 1 minute time. So it is through a bot or through a machine. That is the form or type of an attack. So you have to pick those kind of information and alert from the monitoring and start investigating it. So that's one of the example I'm giving you. So here's the summary, like how much people make here. Like you go, it's a Department of Labor. It's not me saying it. It's a Department of Labor statistics from the last year. And it's showing how much growth, 32% growth. Job has gone up. Bachelor's degree is required and less than 5 years or 3 to 5 years experience is there, what you need to be having, and the average or median salary is there. But some areas they say, okay, it's a debate for degree or no degree. I don't want to go into the discussion. But if you don't have a degree, then you need to have certifications and all that. So it's a whole different thing. But again, that's a decent job. If you have 3 to 5 years of experience, I think it's a good job for you to start a career. So that's the data available that what you should be doing and go check yourself. So how you want to plan and start your career? We'll look into that. Same again. And then another job is purely cyber security, which is penetration testing. What you do is that you do the penetration testing of jobs where we go and do the pen testing. So there's a course available, there's training available. You find vulnerabilities in the web server, in the public facing website, basically most of the time, or public facing services. And that's what you learn, all the best practices around that. How do you protect a network and computer system administrator, right? So those are the jobs that's been there for so many years. But again, you can come from that network and computer system administrator experience. And if you wanted to start your career, you can take that as well. There, you need to have a good understanding of computers and the network system and everything. And here are some advanced level, because it all depends. If you have more than 5 years of experience or 10 years, you can end up role in one of these roles depending. Then this also depends on the size of the organization, right? If you work for a very big, large corporate organization, which is multinational, yeah, so you're a security engineer, architect, you will assigned to work on those stuff. You could be a engineer just for the firewall. You could be an engineer just for the cloud provider. You could be an Azure engineer, or Google or AWS engineer, or AWS architect. So there are specific jobs available if you go and look it up online. And then you could also end up go all the way up to the ladder as a chief information security officer, which is both technical and business thing you have to manage. That's a very there. And and of course, these jobs, the more you become senior, it adds more and more responsibilities. So if you have any question, keep post your question. Let's take I wanted to add here, but again, let me know if you want to do. I can do some Indeed, but again, we can skip that. So when you go to the Indeed.com, you look for these job titles, you find a lot about it, and see where the market looks like and what it looks like. Yeah, if you're interested, I can show you. But again, just go to Indeed, type the job titles: information security engineer, analyst, security engineer. You'll find a lot about there. So if you have any question, let me know. And then we'll move on to the next slide and see how our basic level of trainings. And this is one of them. You can find more on internet, but again, I would highly recommend whatever, if you're a systems and network engineer, if you want to be getting into the cloud, check this out from CompTIA, CompTIA.org. And I really liked the area they're covering in the Security Plus, because they're covering pretty much all these areas, for example. So let me explain you what are those or what you will be learning. So again, I'm not being paid, whatever. It's just I saw them, and the area they're covering is really pretty good. So they will, as per the course description, it is saying what skill you will learn about threat attacks and vulnerabilities, basically. So what you will learn about penetration testing and vulnerability scanning concept. So why they're important? Because whenever you bring your any server or services to the internet, to the public world, you have to make sure they're secure. So basically they do. So your job will be, okay, penetration testing and vulnerability scanning, and making sure that server or that application does not have any vulnerabilities, because there are any vulnerabilities, you need to fix it. If not, then you're exposed to a threat or exposed to an attack. And that kind of skill set, what you will learn, the tools, and that you will end up doing a job for a company who provides security services. Excuse me. So they will also tell you and give you the knowledge around tools and technologies, basically, and architect and design. So they will give you some concepts around that. How do you do that? How do you plan secure network architecture? You have different layers, multi-layer, behind the firewall, DMZ, different internal network, management network, and different concepts around those. So I believe, I have not looked at the syllabus, but from the high level topic, that's what I can imagine. Or these kind of skill set, what I'll be looking for a person who's applying for these kind of jobs. And then in access management, which I have already explained you about identity access management, that what you're going to learn about identity and access management is about basically how do you protect your identity, because of cloud is very, very important. So you make sure your identity is safe and secure. And there are different tools like Azure Identity available. There's Okta available. There's Ping Identity. So, and what are the controls? There are tons of control, and even people get hired just as identity and access management engineer, identity and access management architect, because large companies, they have very big infrastructure, so they need just expert for this expertise only. So just wanted to bring it up. Risk management is a part of security. You always have to evaluate the risk whenever you put the control or technologies. And if there are no fixes available, you have to call out the risk. Okay, if you don't do it, what's the risk? Can the risk be remediated? Can the risk be mitigated? Or we need to accept the risks around those best practices, which is I'm expecting they will cover, and the cryptography and PKI, public key infrastructure, which I give it high level. Okay. Also the for wireless security, you have to secure the network, not to have any clear text. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, I'll wait a couple of more minutes. If not, then I'll move on to the end of the slide and then we'll wrap it up. Okay. So if there are no questions, let's move on. So yeah, that's me. Just last slide. If you can have any question for this particular stuff in today's live session, just put the comments here in the live session itself. And I will be monitoring if any sessions, if any questions comes after that. Some people ask me some best practices. What I'm going to try doing is that put some URLs and some articles related to that in the chat. Second thing, you can go find about myself, subscribe to my channel, share this video if you like it. And if you have any topics, do let me know in the comments or suggestion, or reach out to me. You will already find some major fundamentals, Office 365, cloud security best practices, and identity and access management videos already available on my YouTube channel. They are there, yes, from my previous sessions, recording available. But if something you need to know and find out more, just let me know. I'll be more than happy, or maybe speak to one of your event if you want me to. That being said, I appreciate all of you. Thanks for your time, and I hope to see you again. Thank you and bye.